Hello everybody, welcome back to Tempest Books. I'm Rebecca and today we are looking at why I always choose physical books first. So we have here our three standard options for consuming books. Audiobooks, digital books, and physical copy books. Now, unfortunately for me, audiobooks is just a straight up no-go because I'm hearing impaired. I cannot understand, essentially, a lot of audiobooks. I have less than half the amount of hearing that most people have. It was explained to me once, so that I could explain it to others, that theoretically you have, say, 100 points of hearing in each ear. One of my ears only has about 8 of those 100 points left, and the other one has about low 80s amount, depending on whether or not I've got an ear infection or if I've got pressure behind the eardrum. Then it bottoms out even further. So unfortunately for me, audiobooks just don't work out. A lot of the time I can't understand what the people are saying, like what the narrator is actually communicating. I know their sound, I know they're talking, but it's kind of just static. Like it's sound that is indistinguishable except for like an occasionally emphasized consonant or something like that. It's worse with deep voices or with voices that are accented in a way that I haven't been raised with, so I can't recognize as easily, things like that. So if I try, and I have tried audiobooks, then I spend as much time pausing, going back, concentrating really hard to try and make out what is being said, using the very, very few contextual clues that may exist to try and figure out what's going on. And in the end, it takes so much effort and so much time that it's just not worth it. So unfortunately for me, no on the audiobooks. So that leaves us with our physical books and our digital copies. Now, I don't mind digital copies. They come in handy for traveling, at the gym. I quite literally have my Kindle propped up on my phone on walking machines or riding machines, and I read. Otherwise, exercising is so boring, and I would pack it in because I'm just astoundingly underwhelmed with everything going on. So I read in the gym, and this goes with me in my bag. So like when I go out, and it's always there to grab out, and that's handy. I do like that. It's convenient, travel sized, and it works out when I need it. But it doesn't give me something that is extremely important that physical books do. Now, unfortunately for me, most of my life is shaped by my autism. And part of my autism is a sensory processing disorder. Now, I will do a video in the future about how my autism and my alexithymia shape like my reading preferences and my reading habits, but for this video, we're just looking at the stimulus processing disorder that comes with my autism. Now, stimulus is essentially what is going on around you that you take in with your senses, that your brain then processes and tells you what it is. You smell a scent and your brain goes, I know that scent, it's meat cooking, or I know that scent, it's a flower, and that is you having processed the stimulus. For me, my processing that stimulus is really, really wonky. So I can't filter out a lot of stimulus. Going back to the scent thing, you say go into a new person's house and you immediately notice that the scent in that person's house is different to the scent in yours. It may not be a bad scent at all, it is just simply different. You are picking up the fact that they have a certain shampoo in the bathroom, or you're picking up the fact that they cooked something with a different spice, or just the innate sort of natural scent of that person's house. You pick it up because it's different. But after about 5 minutes or so, you can't smell it anymore because your brain has essentially gone, okay, I figured out what the scent is. It's not dangerous. It doesn't matter to me. So I'm not going to take any notice of that stimulus anymore. Your brain is not going to go, okay, keep always taking note of it because that takes up brain space. That takes up brain power that you need to be using for something else. And that is called olfactory adaptation. Now, I don't have that almost at all. If I can smell something, I will smell it all the time, always. And unfortunately for me, that is like that with a lot of my senses. What little I can hear, I can never just ignore. And so if it is very loud in a room, and so because it's loud, it is all just a blur of sound. I can't pick out anything individually. I can't ignore it. I can't push it to the back of my mind. If there is a sensation on my skin, I can't ignore it. I can't push it to the back of my mind. It has to be dealt with. Like I have to do something to change it. And I feel everything. I can feel every inch of my clothes on my skin. You wouldn't believe how many of my clothes I wear inside out when I'm at home, if I can get away with it. Because, you know, if clothing was made for comfort, the seams would be on the outside. Just saying. And so where physical books come in is that they are a sensory experience that I can control. They are a sensory experience that is not painful, and I can use them to essentially forcibly filter out other sensory stimulus. Now, I do help it a little bit by being in somewhere that is quiet, being in somewhere that is kind of not sensory neutral, but as close as I can get to it. And I can then use these books to take up the rest of the sensory space that is, you know, available for use. That means I can hold them in my hand. That means that the feeling of the pages of the books is always the same. It means that the font is almost always one of several fonts that I've gotten used to over the years. The covers almost all feel the same depending on what sort of book they are. Almost all books smell nearly the same depending on their age. So I know what a newer book smells like. I know what an older book smells like. I know what the weight of a book feels like in my hands. And so all these different sensory stimulus are things that I am used to. They are positive. They are something that I associate with calm and with gentle stimulus that is easy to process. Now, of course, I have preferences within that. So like little books, you know, probably my least favorite. They can be harder to hold after a little while. You know, I need my glasses sometimes to be able to read for a very long time when the print is really small. So that alters things a little bit, brings in a little bit more stress. So generally, I always prefer the bigger books. So we've got the middle-sized books that I definitely don't mind. You know, the print is of reasonable size and the paper is almost always the same. Now the biggest books are definitely my preference. So definitely the biggest size are what I will always try to get. Again, they have much bigger font. I don't need my glasses a lot of the time. And being able to hold them, and they're almost all the same width. They are the same feeling in my hands. And I have more options to be able to move my hands around when I'm reading them. And the pentultimate version of a physical book that I can have is a large hardcover. Now, unfortunately, I always have to take the slipcases off the hardcovers. Otherwise, the constant shifting between where the slipcase is on the cover is very, very distracting. Being able to hold a large hardcover without the worry of the spine going crack or without the worry of bending the cover or anything like that. This is the ultimate of happy place for physical books for me. So in the end, reading a book is not just sitting and reading a book for me. Reading a book is a sensory experience that I can control. It is a sensory experience that is quiet and peaceful and familiar and unchanging. And in an autistic's world, that is gold. That is, oh my God, the world doesn't seem so scary today. Maybe it's not going to eat me the moment I step out the door. Maybe it's not quite so thunderously frightening. Reading physical books, the stimulus experience that it gives me is the single peaceful place that I have in my life. And it is the only time the world doesn't feel like a hostile place that I have to survive. And why I will go to some pretty long lengths to have a physical copy of a book before an e-reader copy. Well guys, that's it. Is this something that you've found as well? Can you relate to this at all? What sort of experience does physical book copies give you? All right, I'll see you next time. Bye.